Okay, so what can cause a shipment to get delayed at Amazon? I'm just wondering kind of the general things because, especially around quarter 4, it's really important to get high turnover and get your stuff sold. So,
Right.
just wondering if you could talk about that.
Absolutely. And the thing is, there's so many different things, but you would never even know. And it'd be frustrating because you could keep having this happen and keep getting shut down. But really, the way to think about it is there's the perfect process where it slides through the process well. And then there's exceptions to that process. So that's what I'll speak to is what are those exceptions is really what your question is asking.
Yeah.
So, so I'll talk about the process really quickly. So the way the process should work is you should create your FBA shipping notice and send in your advanced shipping notification so they know exactly how many are coming of what ASIN with which carrier and how much it's going to weigh, the cubic dimensions of everything, length, width, height, and weight. And yeah, that's really what you need to know. That's step one. If that's wrong, that's going to trigger an exception.
Even like the size of the box?
The
Or is
size of,
that one kind of a little bit more where somebody would be like, whatever, that looks about right? Or, but is it just like if you're way off that they might flag it or something?
really, once you've set the weights and of the items inside of a box, that it'll calculate out the weight of the rest of the box. And usually that's more for the shipper. The shippers want to know that more so than Amazon does. Because the first thing that happens when the shipping company delivers it to Amazon, there's an associate there emptying it out, scanning the shipping label to show USPS or UPS or whoever that it's been received. What's going to happen is they're going to open your box, they're going to cut it open, remove all the dunnage. That's why it's important not to have any packing peanuts or anything that'll fall all over the floor where they're going to have to sweep and clean it up. None of that shredded paper. Don't do that stuff. You either use the air filler stuff or the, construction paper, not construction, craft paper.
Oh, yep. That's what I use, the craft paper.
Exactly. Use that kind of stuff. It's easy because they can pick it all up at once and throw it in the trash, right? Then it's going to slide down to the next person. They're going to take your items out and put them into a tote or put them onto their table to receive your product. That box goes in the trash. So the box isn't really as important. But that process right there, you want to make sure there's nothing that's going to trigger an exception for that first process. That's called freight check-in. They've now checked it in. They've told UPS and you that yes, it's no longer in transit to our warehouse. It's at our warehouse. Then the next step is we've got to receive it to show how much of what you sent we've got, right? So there's a receiver, they've got your product on their desk. They're going to scan the shipping label to show, hey, that it's this item. It's going to pull up on their screen. Is this the right title? Is this the right SKU? Check to make sure you're looking at the right item.
Do they get like an image or is it all like text? Oh, so they actually get to see your main product image here.
Exactly. Yep, they see
Oh,
the
okay.
image,
That's good to
a little
know.
small description because Amazon wants to make it as easy as possible for you to recognize what it is you're working on, so you make less mistakes as a receiver at a station. So they'll show you an
Oh,
image, they'll show you the name, and you got to match it up. And then you want to match up variants. So if this is the set of two, or red one, or blue one, they've got to verify that this is the actual items. And once they do, then they say how many they have. They enter how many they have. They put it into another container. And when they scan that container, hit enter, your product is now received into the warehouse with that exact amount is received in the warehouse. Then it gets taken to stow, where the product needs to be stowed into a bin, right? So they take that item, they scan the tote that it's in, they scan your item to make sure it's the right item because you may have different items in a tote, and they scan the bin they're putting it into. So now that item is assigned to that bin. At that moment, it's available for sale on Amazon. So you've got freight check-in that shows, hey, we've received it from the carrier. It's at our building. Then you've got the received process that says, here's how many we received, and they're good to go. And then you've got the stow process where when that ends, it's here's how many we received. They're in our warehouse, and they're available for a customer to buy.
so that's when it goes good,
That's
right?
when it goes good, right?
All right. So
Perfect
where
process.
where could it go wrong, and
Sure.
what would be where could it go wrong?
So where it could go wrong from the beginning, if you use any of that kind of packing or prepping material I told you about, they're immediately going to set it down to the side because they don't want to mess up the warehouse and have it, just be really messy. Because remember, these guys are processing thousands every hour, and there's several trucks going at the same time. So if you make a mess all over the floor and it explodes everywhere, you didn't tighten your liquids properly, they're just going to chuck it to the side. We'll deal with it later. That's a really dangerous thing too, because you may not have it's still in limbo. Amazon hasn't said they received it yet. The carrier has already handed it off. So if it gets lost in that process, your inventory may just disappear. It's just gone now.
Okay. So my battery just died. So we're going to pick up right. It's okay. I got charged batteries.
Okay.
All right. And I am back.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. So your inventory could just disappear.
Could just disappear. Yeah.
Okay. So that's if you got, so make sure you have the right packaging requirements. And then what else could go wrong? So it gets in, they process it now. So it's going down this, this line
it's
now?
It's on a conveyor belt. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Conveyor belt, or it's in a big cart. And now you make sure you don't have any packing peanuts or shredded paper that could spill everywhere, and that all your liquids are sealed properly so they don't spill all over the place. And also you want to make sure this isn't like, it won't have an exception, but you want to make sure you don't get your product damaged. So if you pack your box really, really tightly all the way to the top and then tape it down, well, they're going to be using box knives. So if that box knife cuts through the tape and cuts your product, you don't want to damage your own product, because that's what's going to happen in the product. They're going to cut it open. So you need to be prepared for that. And then also stuff can fall off the conveyor belt. So it's like 3 feet higher or so. So you need to make sure it's packed well enough that if it falls from 3 feet, that it doesn't break. So that's in the first part of 3.
Oh, yeah. Some people can overlook that at the top with the box cutter, because I know that I've had a lot of my returns come back with my Eclipse classes that were just like
sliced
right there. Yeah. I was like, oh, sweet. Well, that could just make some people blind. It's a good thing they didn't use that.
Right. So you don't want that. So pack your stuff with some dunnage at the top and the bottom, because you never know which side they're going to open. So there's that. And then it gets to the receive station, the receiver. Now, this is the person whose job it is to check, right? So it's a very senior job in the building. They've got to check a whole lot of different things. And at every station, there's 3 totes. So instead of going to the tote where it's perfect process going to be stored, they have a tote at the bottom where if it's high value, right, they can put it in that tote. It'll go to the high value cage. If it's damaged, right, it can go into the damaged container to be destroyed. And if it's, what's the other one? For prep. Prep is usually the one that gets people the most, right? So what are the different types of prep? This is if you didn't have an ASIN sticker, right, a barcode, that will flag it immediately, right? And because the whole warehouse needs that ASIN sticker to know where it's at. So they'll send it over to be ASIN stickered, right? If it's what's the other one? Tape. If it needs to be taped more properly or repackaged, that'll go over to prep as well too. If it needs to be bagged, that's another one. So, maybe you had your stuff loose or it fell apart in shipping. Now they got to go bag it and repackage it basically so that it can sit on the shelf properly. If it's date lotted, right? If it has an expiration date and there wasn't one set by you before you shipped it in, that's got to get kicked over to the prep team to add that information in too, right? And then also the big one that gets a lot of people is if you didn't add the right dimensions, the sizes in, it's got to go over to get cubic scanned, which will add the length, width, height, and weight. Right? All of these things are exceptions to the process and will make your product sit. Because think about they're processing these thousands and thousands and thousands. There's one guy over on the side potentially who's having to deal with all these exceptions.
Oh man!
If you end up in that queue or that size, it's no telling. When it may end up, usually here's how it happened. One shift, they'd be like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with it because I've got all this other stuff because I need that person working over here. So then it'll hand over to the next shift. So it'll be the next shift's job. Then they're like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. And it'll pile up. Usually it's Friday and Saturday night shift that has to deal with all of that stuff.
So it's not like there's this set sequential order. You put in a case or like you get put over there and they're going to do everything in a line. Like maybe it's like, oh, that one looks like a lot of work. I'm going to move that or like go to, okay. So they're just humans at the end of the day. It's like if something's going to be a pain in the ass, like they're going to push it off.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And it's set up that way too. And it's not like punishment or anything, but it's like no one's really thinking about that. And it's almost like, yeah, let them learn their lesson, right? Ship it to us properly.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So there's no urgency to make sure that your stuff over there in prep is getting prepped. Now, again, they don't want Amazon has a reputation for to protect, so they're not going to let it sit there forever. But it's not in the flow of things. It broke the process. So you're going to have to wait.
Yep.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. No. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the other big thing too is you will probably never know, because there's a distinction between your stuff sitting in prep and the people you're talking to filing your cases. So you may be dealing with several different teams to get your stuff resolved or even looked into. So when you're dealing with a customer service team, they're saying, okay, well, let me pass you off to the retail team for your category. Now, the retail team for your category, they're not going to know what's going on in the warehouse with your product. So they're going to have
any communication between like these departments in the warehouse, or like just only in extreme circumstances, or how does that work?
This is the connection is that retail team can speak to what's called an ISS rep. So there's 3 or 4 people max in a building whose job it is to communicate outside of the building. So that's customer service team, retail team. So all these tickets file in, and there's only these 3 or 4 people who are handling all the cases for that entire building for all the vendors, right? So that's the only communication they have. That's why it usually takes a long time if you're dealing with warehouse stuff, because you're hoping one of those people is on duty today who can go in, and then they go through all these different tickets, and then they have to go to that prep pile and look for it. Because remember, your stuff hasn't been received yet.
Oh.
So there's not in the system at all. So they literally have to go walk around digging through stacks of packages to try and find your stuff to then go update the ticket. Right.
Ooh, okay. So that's going to take a long time.
It's going to take a while. It's going to be hard.
Okay. So essentially, just recapping what the biggest issues are is essentially what? Like, I know we talked about this earlier, but weight. So basically, if you don't have the right weight or dimensions of your box, you're going to get there. And then I guess
the right ASIN stickers, you've got to have the barcode on there, and it's got to be accurate. You got to have the right barcode UPC matched to the right ASIN or ASIN in Amazon's system. If that's off, you'll get kicked over to prep. And also it's got to be the right for each variant. So it might be, you're selling lanterns, you got the right ASIN for your parent SKU, what they call that, for your parent SKU, but this is the red one versus the green one, right? You got to make sure that sticker, the right barcode is on.
So overall, being a warehouse manager, would you suggest that people get inventory inspections before they make their purchase from their supplier? Yep.
Yeah, I would not leave it to my manufacturer to figure out how to ship stuff into Amazon properly.
Okay, because I know some people are like, oh yeah, your manufacturer can organize shipping for you and whatnot. But if you don't get an inspection, like they suggest, like don't get an inspection done and have your manufacturer shipped to Amazon like that. You think that would be risky?
You're playing with fire, because again, it's like Russian roulette, because you may get it in there, because what you're hoping is that Amazon's going to fix your problems for you if you have problems with that shipment. That's a bad assumption, because
because what we're hearing
processing exceptions.
Yeah. Okay. Here. Well, that I think is great. So as long as you get all the dimensions, your packaging right, and you use a good freight forwarder or something, it sounds like you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
So, all right, cool.
And there's another option too. If you know that you're not going to have the barcodes on there, or you know that it's not going to be prepped properly, you can send advance notification and request from Amazon. All right, I want you to ASIN sticker this for me. I want you to Cuba scan this for me. I want you as part of the prep instructions. And there's a link for all the different things, and they'll just charge you for it. And in that case, you should be fine.
Oh, okay. Yep. Okay, great. Well, that's, I think, very helpful.